gonna make a tagine, and we're gonna talk about what that means exactly. So this is a tagine. This is the tagine oven. So the dish and the dish that it's prepared in both have the same name. So this is a clay oven, and because of the shape of it, it creates a lot of steam when it's cooking, and it holds that steam in, not releasing it, kind of up there at that cone shape in the top. And it's cooked low and slow for a very long time. And that is how we get those really extracted flavors and super tender meat and things like that. The spices that are used in Morocco are also really integral to the dish, because so many of those spices are indigenous to that area. They're very fresh, they're ground fresh. This is something like, if you go to Morocco, this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see these huge mountains of spices that they just have open, and you get a little scoop and you take them with you, or you bring your jars with you. But so it's a really heavy spice-driven food, much like Indian food, but there are some differences. So we can really see in Moroccan food the French influence. So children learn to speak French in Morocco. Almost all Moroccans, it's their second or first language. And so we see the nuanced methods of French cooking and Moroccan food a lot differently than we do in Indian food. So Indian food uses a ton of the same spices, while it's very in your face with those spices. Moroccan food is a lot more restrained. The flavors are more subtle. We're not using as much spices. We're not using hot, is something that they don't really do a lot of. So those are some just kind of overview of Moroccan cooking. All right, so I'm going to talk a minute about two ingredients we're using today that are quintessential to Moroccan food. You can't really make Moroccan food without them. So the first one is this spice. Let me see if I can get it in focus. There we go. So it's called Ras al Hanout, and it's a spice mixture. And there are some different variations of it, but they all have about the same thing. This one contains cinnamon, turmeric, coriander, cumin, mace, ginger, paprika, black pepper, allspice, galangal. And so that galangal is it's in the ginger family, but it has a garlic type flavor. Cardamom, cloves, nutmeg, lavender, bay leaves, and that's it. So this is something you can make yourself if you can't find it. It's something you can order online. And again, the higher quality our spices, the better our dish is going to taste. The next thing that we're going to use is harissa paste. So this one comes from Trader Joe's, and it's not bad. It's pretty good. I use it for stuff. There's a little Moroccan man at my farmer's market who makes his mother's version of harissa paste, and it's incredibly good. You could just like eat it with chips. It's so good. I'm gonna just check and make sure nobody else is trying to get into the meeting. Yeah, okay, we're good. And that is, you know, it's tastier than the one at Trader Joe's, but those are hard to find. Rochelle was asking about the harissa paste, and I didn't make my own before. This is generally pretty spicy, but I've also cut out most of the peppers and used roasted red peppers, like a jar even of roasted red peppers, and pureed that with the ginger and the spices, and it's a really, really good kind of base to a lot of dishes. And I put that in, you know, eggs or different things, and it's super versatile. So if you can't find this, you can definitely make your own, and you can definitely make a milder version of it that, you know, again, if we're cooking for kids and different people and we don't want something super spicy, we can have all that flavor that comes from the elements of this without having it be super, super hot. Another thing that's nice about Moroccan food, which isn't the case with Indian food, because we are restraining those flavors, it is a wine-friendly food, whereas you can't pair wine that well with Indian food. And so that's another benefit to it, because I like to drink wine with my dinner. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and I'm gonna tell you guys, you can control your mute, so that way if you have questions, you wanna pop in, just go ahead and unmute yourself, and that way we can go ahead and interact. So I'm gonna bring up the recipe so that we can see it here. Can everybody see that pretty good? Rochelle, can you like see it okay? Or okay, awesome. Okay, perfect. This is already on my website. So after this, you can go ahead and pull it off and print it on that. I will tell you, I sent this recipe to my Moroccan friend in France, and he sent it to his mom. And his mom said the only thing I would change is to add a little bit of ginger. So if you have ginger and you want to throw a little bit in here, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and update that on the website. If you don't have it, this is still a super tasty recipe without it. So tagines are, right, like I said, it's the oven and it's the few spices. And after that, we can get super creative. Sometimes they're made with lamb. Sometimes they're made with chicken. I have seen spiced ground beef, like kind of meatballs. Sometimes they're completely vegetarian. So we can get creative with the ingredients as long as we have the spices and the basic ingredients to create those flavor profiles. I'm going to use lamb, and because I love lamb, and I think this is a great opportunity for it. Just a note to you about quarantine shopping. I have found that Costco always has lamb. They have a really good quality boneless leg of lamb that is a great price, and so I get that and I usually cut it in half. I use half of it for this dish, and then I can use half of it for something else and freeze it later. So I'm going to go ahead and get mine from the refrigerator. I'm going to start chopping my meat in chunks, and that'll be kind of the first thing that we do. The next phase that we're going to do, we're going to take our onions and our garlic and a little bit of our spices. We're going to toast those in the Instant Pot, similar to what we did with our chicken sag, just for a few minutes before we add in all of our other ingredients. The reason that I really like to do this dish in the Instant Pot is we can create the slow roasted, cooked all day flavors in just a few minutes that normally would take hours in that tagine oven. And the reason for that is cooking under pressure cooks our things about 70% faster than they would normally cook. Because we are cooking them in this sauce, it's always really tender, it's braised meat, it has that really velvety texture. And because of the heat, we're extracting vital oils and things from those spices that generally take a long time. We're able to do that in a short amount of time. So this dish has a mature flavor with only spending a few minutes in the Instant Pot. So that's a win for me. All right, so I'm gonna get my meat out. That's the first thing we're gonna do, and you guys can go ahead and start chopping your meat. Have you already done that part? Or are we? Okay, perfect. All right, we're on the same page. Okay. Okay, yeah, so are they boneless or bone-in? Okay, perfect, yeah. Just kind of chop them in chunks about like this. Yeah. And this is great because when you do find lamb next time, you can go ahead and use it, no problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch my camera. I'm gonna leave the recipe up so you guys can see it, but I'm gonna switch my camera to this view. So again, something else I'm going to mention just on our knife skills. When we go to our onion, I'm gonna demo chopping our onion correctly, because that's something that we do constantly in our kitchens as we chop onions, and a lot of people don't actually know how to do it correctly. And there's a super easy way to do it, so I'll show you. But just as we note, as we're chopping, when we hold our knife, we always want to hold it here on the blade. My logo is in the way of here. There we go. Here on the blade. We don't want to hold our knife back here, and we don't want to use our pointer finger because that makes it really unstable. And I know it feels weird if you haven't done this, but this is really the way your knife is meant to be held, and that's how it's going to be balanced, and that's going to be the safest too for cutting. So I have this piece of lamb. I really love the flavor of lamb, and I do not trim the fat on my lamb. Some people do. If you don't like gamey flavor, then you want to take that off, because the fat is where most of the flavor of meat really lives. On the schedule coming up towards the end of the month, I'm also doing a Moroccan egg dish called shakshuka. And it's kind of all over the Middle East in different areas, but it's eggs basically poached in tomato sauce. But I like to do a Moroccan version where we use some of these spices, and it can be for breakfast, or what's really nice about it doesn't have to be. It can also be for dinner, and but I love this dish. It's super easy, and it's really impressive if you have people over for brunch. It's not Instant Pot, but it's on the stove top that I'm teaching it, and it's a super good dish. I think you're gonna like it. So we are gonna move on, and we're gonna chop our onion, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So I know it sounds, and you might already know, but I find that when I teach the classes, a lot of people don't do it this way, and it just makes it so much easier. So we take our onion. I'm trying to make sure I'm going to take this logo thing out of here because it's just in the way. There we go. Okay, so when we do our onion, usually the first thing people do is they chop off this end and this end. But we're going to leave the root on. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, the root holds our onion together, and as we chop it, it's going to make it a lot easier without it falling all apart. And secondly, where the root also releases all of those fumes that cause you to cry or make your eyes water when you're cutting the onion. So leaving that on is going to make it less stinky, basically. Just cut off one end, peel it away. And of course, we're doing this dish in the Instant Pot. If you can do it in a Dutch oven as well, and the steps are basically the same, except for when we cook it for 7 minutes in the Instant Pot, you would let it go low and slow all day, for 2 or 3 hours. So, ever want to try it that way, you're welcome, and you could see even the difference, like if you feel like it makes a difference. And it does make a tiny bit of difference. Like, I love my French Le Creuset cookware, and there are certain things that, I'll have a fancy dinner and I will cook them for 6 hours. And yeah, it does taste better. But when you're just trying to get dinner on the table and feed your family, I mean, these are pretty good, like, restaurant quality meals that you can do in here really fast. Okay, so we're gonna cut that through the root right in the middle. And then we're gonna set it down, because we cut through that root a little bit, and putting it down on the cutting board is going to keep those gases from releasing. And then we're going to take our onion and we're going to slice. We're going to make little slices all in this guy. Okay. And now that we did that, all we have to do is cut the opposite direction, little slices, and we get tiny little fine pieces of onion. Super easy. And the other thing I want to point out as far as knife skills go, and again, this is something that feels awkward in the beginning, but it really does make using a knife in the kitchen a lot safer. So instead of putting our fingers out like this, we want to always kind of try to be in a claw, where our fingertips are down, pressing in. And the reason for that is, if our knife were to slip and we got our knuckle, we might go ahead and slice off a little bit of skin on that hard bone, and that's not going to be so fun. But if we cut through our fingernail or the soft tip of our finger, that's going to be a way worse cut. So we're using these sharp knives, we're going pretty fast. It's always better if we can kind of do with, the claw on our fruits and vegetables when we're cutting. And after you practice, it starts to feel normal. In the beginning, it feels really weird, but it does make a big difference. And then the next thing we're going to do is prep our garlic. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can chop it in a really similar way as we just did our onion, making those little slices one way and then slicing in the opposite direction. Or you can use a garlic press. I use my garlic press all the time. Okay, good. I'm going to get a little bit of oil, And again, you can use avocado oil. I'm going to use a little bit of olive oil. That's kind of indigenous to this area. That's what they would normally use in there. And coat the bottom of my pan with that. And we're going to go ahead and set it on saute. And we'll let that get a little warm before we dump in our garlic and our onions. So I'm going to talk for a second about browning meat. So almost every French recipe or French-inspired recipe is going to tell you to brown your meat before you cook it because it's going to make it more juicy and it's going to seal in the juices. Okay, so that's scientifically incorrect. I mean, there's a ton of things that the French know about cooking, but this is one thing that they have said for, since the 1700s, it's wrong. What it does do is caramelization creates flavors. So when something browns, brown butter, our onions, our garlic, our meat, that caramelized thing, it changes the chemical components in it. So something that would have, 5 flavors suddenly has 5,000 flavors. So it enriches the flavor of it. There are a lot of cultures that stew their meat and things like that, and they never brown their meat. And Moroccan food is one of those. Vietnamese food also. They don't brown their meats before they make their stews or things like that. They extract the flavor in different ways. And so browning definitely does add flavor components. It doesn't make your meat more tender or juicy or anything like that. In Vietnamese food, it's interesting what they actually do to get some of those caramelized components in the flavor is they make a caramel sauce with sugar and water and fish sauce, and then they cook their meat in that, but they don't brown their meat. So when I make this dish, sometimes people are like, why aren't we browning our lamb? Why aren't we browning our chicken? That's why. We don't do it in Moroccan food. It isn't how we extract that type of flavor. Okay, so mine is hot. I'm going to go ahead and put my onions and garlic in there. And it's always good to add just a little bit of salt when we do something like this because it kind of helps extract the moisture from our onions and garlic, sweats them just a little bit, get some of those juices out of there. Oh, I'm going to show you guys a trick too. So I don't know if you've noticed, but this little ridge on your Instant Pot is really hard to clean, and food and gunk likes to get in there. But how do you get into that? So this little paintbrush that you get at the dollar store, these little foam paintbrushes are perfect for going ahead and getting in the rim of your Instant Pot and cleaning all of that out. So 99-cent store, Instant Pot must have. I'm going to go ahead and saute these. Once these start to get soft, then I'm going to add my Ras El Honey spice blend. It all is happening and remember our ingredients. So once these get hot, then I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 tablespoons of the spice blend. Is it helpful to be able to have this here and see it like as you're going? Like, do you feel like, or do you feel like it obstructs your view of the? Okay. And so this is another thing I'm going to mention. So we're not caramelizing anything. We've already said that. And so it's fine for us to kind of keep stirring. But if we wanted to caramelize things, it's really important to just let them sit there and leave them alone. I find that that's kind of a thing where people feel like, oh, I have to keep doing this or it's going to burn. So if we wanted to develop those caramelized flavors, hands off is better. And that's something that kind of seems counterintuitive. Seems like we should be doing things to our dish. Yeah, go ahead and add a little salt, and that helps just sweat our onions and our garlic. While I'm waiting for this to cook, I'm going to go ahead and open up my tomatoes. because I'm going to want to dump those in pretty quickly because it'll cool down my pot and keep my spice from sticking or burning in the pot. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pan opener and get those open. So I'm using canned tomatoes. If you wanted to go next level with flavor, fresh tomatoes would be amazing. It's really hard to find fresh tomatoes that have a great flavor, but if you're growing them in your garden or something like that, they're going to eat them up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my spices in because my onions are softened. And again, I just mix this, and we're talking like 30 seconds, just a few minutes. We don't want it to stick too much to the pan. It's going to do it just a little bit anyway, so we don't want it to burn. And again, doing this, like we talked about in the Indian class, cooking our spices just a little bit, it changes the flavor of them. It mellows them out, it extracts some of the oils, and it's just a different thing than just throwing them in without doing this. You get a little bit different flavor profile. All right, okay, and that's long enough. I'm gonna dump my tomatoes in right away. And again, I'm gonna take it off and saute right now. And that is going to cool down my pot. I'm going to scrape up anything that might have stuck to the bottom. And it's going to make sure my spices don't burn. So at this point, it already should smell pretty good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our broth. If you don't have broth water, this is stock I made in the Instant Pot. It tastes super good. Put that in. If you have some ginger, we're going to grate a little bit of ginger in here on the recommendation of my friend's mom. If you don't, it's still... So I'm sure you've noticed this too when you've eaten Moroccan food. They kind of go, tagines kind of go, and I kind of divide them in three main areas. So we have what I call briny, which are ones that have like salty elements. They have preserved lemons that are really salty. They have olives that are really salty. They don't have a lot of tomato in them when they do it like that usually. And then we have sweet, which have a lot of dried fruit. They have almonds. They usually have more tomato. And then you have kind of a mixture of those where you'll have like a lot of tomatoes, some dried fruit, some dried almonds, and they'll throw in like salty olives or preserved lemons. And I think you just kind of have to figure out what your flavor preference is there. Some people don't like sweet, savory together. They think it's weird, and so they're gonna want a more briny one. I don't love super salty with the sweet, so I kind of tend to separate those, and I usually just do it with the dried fruit and things like that. The next thing we're going to do, speaking of which, is we're going to cut up our dried fruit. So I'm using apricots. You can use dried figs, you can use fresh figs, you can use dried cherries, you can use dates, you can even use raisins. So again, flexible, use what you have. So I'm just going to cut these up and throw those in. I say about a cup in the recipe, but again, this, adjust it to what you like. If you really like a lot of dried fruit and you want it to be a little sweeter, by all means, go a little heavy on the apricots. There's no problem with that. If you're one of those people that's like, I don't really like fruit in my savory stuff, I think it's weird, pull back or just omit it. Another thing that I wanted to mention, because Rochelle, last time you were saying how you really like chickpeas and you do kind of like these Middle Eastern things. You can do a fully vegetarian version of this, which I think I suggest you use chickpeas and butternut squash. You could use zucchini instead as well. But feel free to add chickpeas to this if it's something that you like and you have on hand. If you have a can, you just dump them in, rinse them and dump them in. If you do this at another time, I always like to soak my beans for a good 6 to 8 hours before I cook them in the Instant Pot. It makes them more digestible, but it also, the amount of liquid that they're going to soak up is more predictable than just dried beans, and they cook a lot faster. Okay, yeah, I really love telling people to find a Middle Eastern market or something like that and go explore, because it's, even with the quarantine, there's a market in Vista called North Park Produce, and they're huge. Have you seen it? Yeah, it's right off Hacienda in 78, and it'll have all of this stuff, and it's not crowded. Their prices are really good. They have excellent prices on Australian lamb. So in this crazy time when people are mobbing grocery stores, if you can find a really good ethnic market, you'll be surprised what they have there. Okay. North Park Produce. So I'm gonna, all right, so I put my apricots in there. I'm gonna put in a tablespoon of harissa. This is something you could even completely leave out and add it at the end if you want to really control your spice. So it is slightly spicy. We're just gonna put 1 tablespoon in so it doesn't overwhelm it, so that it stays wine friendly. That's what we like. I'm going to put in a pinch of saffron. And again, this is something that I could either get at that Middle Eastern market or at Trader Joe's. Do you have a Trader Joe's? Yeah, pinch of saffron. And so now we're going to do some parsley and some cilantro. And we're going to save some, and we're also going to put it on at the end for garnish. So cilantro, I love cilantro. I feel like I use it constantly. But its stems are really it's tender, and they're not woodsy, they're not hard to chew, and we can use those whole. We don't have to get rid of the stems. So with cilantro, I always use the whole stems. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my knife work here too as well. So a lot of times you'll see a chef do something like this. And, oh wait, here, let me take this away, you can't see. All right, so a lot of times you'll see a chef do something like this, and you're like, it looks like they're going just straight up and down with their knife. But if you think about it, when you do this with your knife and you hit it across your finger, that's not what's gonna cut you. This is what cuts you, the slicing motion. So even though it's small and fast, a chef is always rocking the knife and slicing through. Because otherwise we get these like big pieces that aren't really chopped, they're still connected. So whenever we're chopping something fine, we're still making these rocking motions and slicing. And it's just slight, but it's a lot less frustrating. And even if you have to make a really exaggerated motion and to go slow in the beginning, that's fine. But it's so frustrating to cut up something, and then at the end you just still have these like huge pieces that aren't really cut. So, and then you'll just get past that. I always use the stems. Like and even a lot of Indian restaurant recipes specifically call for the stems. So in cilantro, I always use them. It's just, it adds more flavor. It makes my bunch of cilantro go further because I don't have to throw them away. I'm not just using leaves. But then on the parsley is a completely different story, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Go ahead and throw this in here. Another thing when you're using your knife, now that we've got our nice knives and we spend a lot of time sharpening them, when we scrape something off of our cutting board, we always want to use the back of our knife so that we don't screw up the blade. And when you guys are ready for the parsley, let me know because I'm going to show you a little trick. If your knife is nice and sharp, instead of having to pull off leaves, you can just take it and slice up your parsley like this. and your leaves are just going to come right off. And that's way easier than having to go through and de-stem all of your herbs. Your parsley, you do not use the stems. They are really woodsy. Like if you get a little bit in when you do it like that and you have like a little piece, that's okay. That's really fine. But if we had a lot of stems, it's going to be hard to chew our parsley, and that's not going to be very fun. Right. That into our Instant Pot. And I'm going to just bring the recipe back up, and we're going to go over it and make sure we've got all the things in it, because I think we're ready for our lamb. So we cubed our meat, we have our onion, our garlic, our olive oil, our cilantro, our Ras El Hanout blend. We're going to put in a teaspoon of salt. We've got our tomatoes, broth, sliced apricots, harissa paste, a pinch of saffron, and our cinnamon. Okay, perfect. I'm going to grab some salt. A teaspoon. We can always add more later. Our harissa is sometimes it's really salty depending on where you get the blend. And now I'm just going to stick my meat in there. And we're going to be ready. And again, at this point, we could add some root vegetables if we wanted to put some carrots or sweet potatoes in there. Like I said, I say chickpeas or butternut squash. Those are really great things. Big chunks of zucchini also work in this. But right now, I just kind of made this recipe basic so that you can add what you like to it as you like. So I'm going to do that. I am going to cook. I'm going to do the pot and pot method again for my quinoa. And I don't know. Are you, Rochelle? Are you using couscous or quinoa? What are you doing? You're gonna do quinoa. Okay. So do you want to do that in your steam oven again? Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay. So when you do this, 1 cup of quinoa. And actually, I'm gonna double this recipe just because I have to double mine for the 8-quart. My 6-quart died, so I have to make everything twice as big when I do this. And we're gonna have a lot. So 1 cup of quinoa to 1.5 cups of liquid. So water or broth is the, no, I don't. So I have found that when it cooks under pressure, so sometimes quinoa can have a little bit of an off or bitter taste, and that's usually why people wash it. Personally, I have found that when I cook it under pressure, that all goes away and it's just not necessary. But if you perceive that, then by all means next time wash it. But I have not found it to be a problem. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can never bring your pot to pressure without liquid in the bottom. Always, always, always. So, and I can do a class for that maybe next month because I kind of built out this month with the idea of staycation. I figured we're all probably bummed because we're canceling our travel plans. And so I tried to do like a trip around the world in your kitchen. So I have a lot of exotic dishes, but next month I can do that dish with the salmon. So the way that it works is you cut up your potatoes, you would put broth in the bottom of your pan with your potatoes, and then you would set your thing on top and then cook your salmon. And then that way, when your salmon's done, your potatoes are cooked in that liquid, and you can just throw in some butter and some cream with the liquid that's in there and use an immersion blender, and then you have mashed potatoes. So you don't even have to take them out of the pot. But yeah, you always are going to have some liquid in your pot to get it to come to pressure. The only time we don't is, okay. Yeah, but that's awesome. You're being really adventurous and experimenting, and that's how you learn. Like sometimes, you know, things don't work out completely right, but then you're like, oh wait, I figured that out, and it's a better experience going forward. So good for you. Oh, cool. So since I'm doing 2 cups of quinoa, I'm going to do 3 cups of liquid. And because my broth isn't quite defrosted, I'm going to do a mixture of broth and water, so half and half. Okay. And so I like to add my almonds to the quinoa because they kind of have a crunch. If you wanted them to be really soft but have the flavor, you could go ahead and add them to the main pot. They'll cook a lot more. But I like the textural difference, so I put them in my quinoa. And the other thing I'm going to use in my quinoa is so these salt preserved lemons. I did this off my tree, and it's really cool. All you do is you take your lemons and kind of slice them in the bottom, like kind of make a star out of them to cut one way and cut the other, and you put a ton of salt and water in these jars. And 3 weeks later, that breaks it down, and they're kind of mushy, but then makes the peel, it's salty, but it mellows the peel so that you can just eat them. And so they have a really strong salty lemon flavor, but this is a staple of Moroccan cooking. And so I had way too many lemons this year, and I decided, like, I'm gonna try it. So I'm not gonna put all these in because the flavor is pretty strong, but I'm gonna put a couple tablespoons worth in my quinoa, just to kind of give it some flavor. So if you find those in a Middle Eastern market, go for it. If not, I mean, there's tons of lemon trees in Florida, so you can make your own. All right, and then this isn't totally necessary, but I love the flavor of cardamom, and so I just put a couple of cardamom pods whole in my quinoa while it cooks because I love the flavor of it, and I think it goes really well. If you don't want to do quinoa with this, there is a Moroccan restaurant in San Diego that I really loved, and his gluten-free version instead of couscous was ginger, cilantro, mashed potatoes. And so he would just grate a ton of ginger and cilantro and mashed potatoes and whip them with ghee and yogurt, like Moroccan yogurt, and they were great. So that's also kind of a, not super traditional, but fun Moroccan-inspired, I would say, way to do it. So I'm just going to set this all right inside my pot. Yeah, that'd be great. So when you take your quinoa out, this is like normally if you were just going to make quinoa in your Instant Pot, which I actually do a lot for my kids for breakfast, I make like a porridge out of it. The normal formula is 1 cup of grain to 1.5 cups of water, cook for 1 minute, and steam for 10. So you would not release the pressure for 10 minutes after it was done. And so it's a slow absorbing grain. So when we take it out of this, we're gonna go ahead and not take that lid off for maybe 3 minutes and make sure it finishes absorbing the water and it's nice and soft and all of that stuff. So once you get it out, don't open the lid right away. Okay. And while we're letting that cook, I'm gonna wash off my cutting board, and we're just gonna chop some cilantro and parsley for garnish after. Okay, mine is done. Is yours done? Okay, cool. I'm gonna release pressure. I'll switch the camera so that you guys can see. And I'll just remind you, I like to take this little plate, and then I just set my trivet on it, and that way it doesn't mess up my countertop while I'm waiting for my quinoa to finish. And it's not a big deal, but I just didn't like having to scrape up because there's always food on the bottom of it when it's up on top of your other stuff. I'm gonna grab a spoon and just taste it for seasoning and see if there's like any salt or anything else. Mine's pretty good. I don't feel like I need to do much to it. Oh, good! Yay! I'm so excited. I know it's probably not as good as eating it in France, but it's. I'm glad you're excited about it. I'm glad you like it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this off. Oh, good. It looks great. Just don't burn your hands when you lift this thing off. It's like the temperature of lava. Okay, so here's our couscous. I just spoon. You don't have to do this because you just use powdered. So I just take a spoon and take my cardamom pods right out. And then I like to fluff it up a little bit. And I'm gonna mix in some of my parsley. When you put in your parsley, when it's still this warm, it's gonna, the residual heat's gonna cook it just a little bit. And parsley doesn't usually have a ton of flavor, but some of that herbaceous flavor is gonna come out a little bit more because of the warmth. It's gonna wilted some. That's another thing in France, like parsley is a staple in a lot of things they cook, and it actually has a distinct flavor, whereas when we get it here, it just doesn't. And I'm gonna throw in some of my cilantro. All right, so this is ready to plate up. And I'll do that just so you can see how pretty it is. So, because I put those preserved lemons in my quinoa, it's pretty salty. It doesn't need any additional seasoning, but yours might need some salt just to make sure it doesn't make your sauce bland. So last time we cooked together, you talked about being in cooked Rhone, and that actually would be a great wine to have with this. A Rhone is going to go really well with lamb and anything kind of gamey. So if you have a Rhone wine, this is what you want to pair with it. Just say it. All right. Yeah, okay, perfect, good. Excellent. All right, well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to go let you have dinner and enjoy. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.